In Homestead, Florida, stands one of this generation's megalithic structures, built by a single man named Ed Leedskalnin. First in Florida City, he relocated the entire castle to Homestead, Florida, where he completed the work. Frequently compared to the pyramids at Giza, the heads of Easter Island, and Stonehenge, we look at Coral Castle. One giant question remains. How did he build this? The only first-hand accounts that we have of other people watching Ed work is only at night, where he has been said to sing to the stones that now make up what he called Rock Gate. Many of these single pieces of rock weigh over 1,000 tons, and the question remains, how did he do this? We explore this question among many other questions about the nature of our reality, hidden technology, mathematics, and the world energy grid. Come along with me on this journey as we look into just how Ed Leedskalnin created Coral Castle. Hello everyone, welcome to the Issel Missile Productions channel. My name is Steven Yassel. Today we continue our deep dive series into Coral Castle. We are continuing reading Anti-Gravity in the World Grid. We're starting chapter 3 today. Last week's show should have been 2 shows. I didn't anticipate that going as long as it did. But it's alright. We had to cover the material anyways. So, what are we to do, right? I'm just reviewing this chapter before we start here. Okay. So, this chapter, the text font is a lot larger. So we will move through this fairly quicker than last time, but this isn't about quickness here. But anyways, today, chapter 3. Diamagnetic Gravity Vortexes by Richard LeFors Clark. So, this is a collection of papers. And each chapter is divided into being one of these. So this is 30 pages today. But it's a little different because, like I said, the text is larger in print. And I don't think we'll be covering as dense of, I guess, research as we did with the previous chapter. But more on the grid today. And then next week, we're covering a paper by Bruce L. Cathy in this book. And that'll retread a little bit on what we covered in our previous book here. It's just going to keep on digging further into these topics that, like, I started looking at about say like 12, 13, maybe 14 years ago. Anyways, let's begin. The Earth grid, human levitation, and gravity anomalies. Knowledge of the Earth grid, or, quote, crystalline Earth, end quote, is very ancient and has been utilized by a number of civilizations. The pyramids and ley lines are on the power transfer lines of the natural Earth gravity grid all over the world. The Earth grid is comprised of the geometrical flow lines of gravity energy in the structure of the Earth itself. While the subject of the Earth grid has by now been covered in a considerable number of publications, one point in the grid, marked by a long and strange history at the eastern tip of Lake Ontario, is worth special mention. Most interesting here are two individuals living 100 years apart who were both directly affected by this same Earth grid point. These men were Daniel Home, the 19th century psychic, and Wilbert Smith, the 20th century scientist. Daniel Home is the world-famous levitator of the 19th century who lived in this Lake Ontario grid point area. The period from 1820 to 1850 was apparently very active for this grid point, as many of the crowned heads of Europe and many noted scientists and world dignitaries visited Home and verified his feats of levitation. It is speculated that the Lake Ontario region may have acted as a bioelectric triggering device conducive to Home's psychic development. Meanwhile, in the 20th century, because of numerous aircraft crashes in the Lake Ontario Earth grid area, known as the Marysburg Vortex. Hold on a second here. Thought it was a Great Lakes Triangle. By the way, the weather here's been all right. We're about to head into like 30-degree days coming up here on Sunday. All right, let's get back to this here. Really quickly, there's a tiny thing on the bottom. I'm just going to read it. About the author, Richard LeFors Clark, PhD, lives in San Diego and is one of the world's best-known alternative energy, anti-gravity, and world grid researchers. His articles have appeared in a large number of journals and newsletters over the years. Correspondence and requests for his free newsletter may be directed to, and it lists his address in San Diego. Okay, now back to this. So this is gonna, I guess, give alternate names to this phenomenon in the Great Lakes area. Meanwhile, in the 20th century, because of numerous aircraft crashes in the Lake Ontario Earth grid area, known as the Marysburg Vortex, and that's spelled Marysburgh, and regarded as, quote, the other Bermuda Triangle, end quote. And, quote, the gateway to oblivion on the eastern end of Lake Ontario, end quote. The Canadian National Research Council and U.S. Navy began Project Magnet in 1950 to investigate the area's magnetic anomalies and possible magnetic utility. This has been the only known official governmental research program into the Earth grid system. Yeah, the only known one is correct. So here in the book, only known official government, that's all in italics. Project Magnet 1950. A considerable number of planes and ships had mysteriously vanished from this region, while many UFO sightings were reported and other bizarre and unearthly phenomena were noted. And in parentheses it says, for more information, refer to Hugh Cochran's Gateway to Oblivion. Avon Books, New York. And we read that book that started off, no, did it? No. I believe I have Gateway to Oblivion now, though. Since it's being mentioned here, I'm going to make a note of it. See, I'm getting so far along in this series, I'm gonna have to go back and rewatch some of what I've covered already. So Wilbert Smith, a Canadian communications engineer in the Department of Transportation, was director of the team of scientists involved in this project. Project Magnet was later officially terminated when the results became too sensitive for the two governments, as the research seemed to touch upon top-secret UFO data. Afterwards, Wilbert Smith designed several inexpensive gravity devices, such as the anti-gravity proximity detector, the magnetic deflection detector, and the EMF collapse collector. Smith's speculations are most intriguing. He noted large and sometimes mobile gravity anomalies all over the Lake Ontario area. He noted areas of, quote, reduced binding, end quote, in the atmosphere above the lake. The areas were described as, quote, pillar-like columns, end quote, 1,000 feet across and extending for several thousand feet up into the atmosphere. Moreover, they were invisible and only detectable with sensitive equipment. Peculiarities in gravity and magnetism were noted inside these columns, possibly related to a reduction or weakening in the nuclear binding forces holding matter together. The nuclear binding forces seemed stronger in the north and weaker in the south. Some of these mysterious columns appeared to be mobile, changing location over time. Sorry, I gotta take a moment to soak this in. So we have a phenomenon now of smoke-like columns that are invisible for the most part, and that they're not stationary, they move around. Now, on my other deep dive series on the Bermuda Triangle, we've covered a few instances of witnesses seeing this pillar of clouds or smoke or fog. And for the most part, in those cases, I think that was undetectable on their equipment as well. Also, their equipment was going crazy all over the place. Some of these mysterious columns appeared to be mobile, changing location over time. Smith theorized that when the weakened nuclear binding forces encountered matter under stress, such as an airplane in flight, the forces holding matter together ceased to exist, exactly along the lines of maximum stress, and the material disintegrated, resulting in aircraft disasters. Later theorists suggested that ionization of the air within these columns could generate luminous anomalies, and that increasing energies could make rocks and other dielectrics in the immediate area appear to rise from the ground into the air. And the word appear is in italics here. It was also proposed that deep Earth-caused gravity stresses produced the strange atmospheric columns. In gravity-structured Earth, which is part of a gravity universe, that is the mildest form of truthful statement possible. On a planet so determined by gravity, this would be only one of many such gravity magnetic anomalies present on the Earth grid. And underlying many of the magnetic peculiarities observed around the Earth is the special principle of diamagnetism, the root of anti-gravity. First, we'll see this principle at work in the local context of human-induced levitation. Human diamagnetism gravity antenna levitation. The principle of diamagnetism, which underlies human-induced levitation and anti-gravity vortexes on the planet, can be demonstrated simply in what I call the human gravity antenna. Diamagnetism, explained below, is essentially a magnetic neutral zone existing between a north and a south magnetic field, which can be exploited for purposes of levitation. As I will indicate below, there are many such, quote, magnetic flow reversal points, end quote, on the Earth marked by grid points. An arrangement of 5 human beings can be used as a quadruple gravity antenna to perform levitation of the central person. They're talking about lifting somebody up physically with other people's hands. The weight of the central person, the levitee, does not matter, nor is the lack of strength or size of the 4 levitators important. What is important is the form of the quadrupolar positions around the central levitee. It says see diagram 1. Here are a few pointers to keep in mind. First, the levitator should be positioned 45 degrees off the magnetic compass direction of north, south, east, and west for maximum effectiveness. Second, alternation of male and female sex of the levitators adds to the gravity antenna's power. Third, the hand stack on the head of the central levitee by the levitators should not have like-gendered hands touching, so male, male, female, female. Fourth, there's no need to think of anything. Just hold the hands stacked on the levitee's head for a count of 10. On the 10th count, remove the stacked hands quickly and place 1 finger each on the 4 corners of the chair. The person in charge of counting says, quote, lift, end quote, and up goes the levitee. Now let's examine this phenomenon I like to call, quote, party levitation, end quote, in more specific and practical detail. To do party levitation, you will need 5 people, 1 to be levitated, henceforth to be called levitee, and 4 to do the levitating, henceforth to be called the levitators. The levitee sits in a chair and the 4 levitators stand around him so that they form a square. One levitator should stand to the levitee's left and just behind his shoulder. Another levitator should stand in front of him and to his left, close to his left knee. The other 2 should stand on the right side of the levitee's body and in similar positions. Now the object of party levitation is to make the levitee's body so light in weight that the 4 levitators can lift him several feet into the air using a single finger each. If the experiment is performed properly, none of the levitators will feel the slightest resistance to their efforts. It will be as if the levitee's body has lost its weight entirely. While the levitee is sitting, the 4 levitators surround him in the manner indicated and place their hands one atop the other on his head as if they were healing him by the laying on of hands. The person who is going to float must sit relaxed in a straight-backed chair with his legs together, his feet on the floor, and his hands in his lap. The other 4 participants now stand 2 on each side of the seated party, 1 at each shoulder and 1 at the knee. Instruct all 4 to extend their arms and place their closed fists together, closed except for the 4 fingers, which should be extended and touching each other along their lengths as shown. The person nearest the seated man's left shoulder is now asked to place his 2 extended fingers, palms downwards beneath his left armpit. Likewise, his opposite number inserts his 4 fingers beneath the right armpit, and again, the other 2 respectively beneath the seated man's knees. This is just so bizarre. This is what is like tripping me up right now. I don't know why they would go through a thorough explanation on how they do all of this. But Richard Clark thinks it's important for this paper, so I guess we'll finish reading it here. Now invite the 4 assistants to lift the man in this position using only these extended fingers. And it's the 2 index fingers together. However hard they try, it is impossible. As soon as you have registered their inability to do so, ask them to stack their hands alternately, one on top of the other on the man's head, in such a way that no person has his own 2 hands together, and then to exert a steady pressure downwards. As they keep this up, you count to 10. On the count 9, they must withdraw their hands quickly from his head and resume their earlier positions with their extended 4 fingers. On the count of 10, they must try again to lift the man with those fingers alone. This time he will go soaring into the air with no difficulty whatsoever. So I'm going to show diagram 2 here. It's titled Human Quadrupolar gravity antenna. I'm assuming this has something to do with the way the body is charged. That's like a reset button for whatever. I say whatever because what do we compare this to? When I find the words for it, I'll say it. So this next section of this chapter, of this paper, has in bold, so I guess it's the start of a new section, and that's how some of these books are when they publish papers like this. It's a new it's like a new heading in this chapter, so another section. Diamagnetism and levitation. I apologize for my reading today. Diamagnetism and levitation accomplished at Earth grid points. Now, kind reader, reconsider party levitation and perhaps do the experiment again, but this time have no central person levitee. Instead, use the heaviest chair you can find. Just stack the hands, touching on the top of the massive chair back, and lift or levitate the heavy chair. Next, place hundreds of pounds of dead weight heavy books on the chair seat and still levitate it easily with 4 weak children lifting. What is happening here? You have created a small, short duration diamagnetic levitation vortex, which is identical in function to the Earth's big permanent diamagnetic levitation vortexes at such places as Coral Castle, Florida, or Alice Springs, Australia. There you go. And that was on page 58 that this came up. And I'm taking note of Alice Springs. Now reconsider the diagram of the 4 persons levitating the massive chair. As humans, they are the, quote, mighty 4, end quote, of the 4 cardinal compass points. Each one of the 4 is an energy lobe around the central object to be levitated. If I call any one of them north, you can call the others turning counterclockwise, west, south, and east. And it says see diagram 2. So that's why I was labeling the compass points there. Try doing the levitation with only 3 people positioned off-centered to the appropriate 90-degree spacing. We know that both the exact number and pattern of the human levitator element, but not their exact size or physical strength, are critical to the levitation. Also, we know that inanimate weight levitates as easily as animate through using a human diamagnetic vortex. We might try a piano or even a Volkswagen in place of the chair. The remarkable thing about party levitation is that it works anywhere on the Earth's surface, whereas the equivalent big permanent Earth grid diamagnetic levitation vortexes all have fixed geographic locations, such as southern Florida or central Australia. Whether it's on the surface of the Earth or within the human sphere of the four levitators, the mechanism for levitation or anti-gravity is identical. In either case, there are four energy lobes or directions. The north-south axis elements are usually called magnetic, and the east-west axis elements are called diamagnetic. Levitation is produced by diamagnetism existing on the surface of the Earth or near it. Diamagnetism operates at 90 degrees from magnetic, but in three directions, and not flat and two-dimensional on a sheet of paper as usually drawn. If magnetism flows in the plane of the Earth's surface, then diamagnetism flows straight up. And straight up is the direction that we call levitation or anti-gravity. So here on page 59, we have a photograph. It says, "Sculpture symbolic of the moon and planets constructed by Ed Leedskalnin at Coral Castle, Florida. With elementary tools and equipment, this Latvian immigrant created artifacts whose construction defies, quote, logical, end quote, explanation." Hey, look, it's the same in the slideshow as here. Look at that. Just different angles. So I guess there were a lot more trees around Coral Castle back in the day. Now there's like barely anything. There's some vegetation growth in there, but it's barely there. So here, it says in the accompanying diagram, see diagram 3, Coral Castle's location is shown as Earth grid point number 18. Okay, maybe we'll know more about what we just looked at there. It's fascinating. I'm looking at all the details on it. The West Lobe is what pulled Florida down and opened the Keys area up. What? There's not much to reference to go by on this map to show exactly what that's showing. The West Lobe is what pulled Florida down and opened the Keys area up. The East Lobe is the Bermuda Triangle. Coral Castle will be referred to throughout this chapter, so a few words here of introduction to this impressive project are necessary. Coral Castle is a marvelous demonstration in stone and coral of many hidden principles of magnetics, designed and built in southern Florida by the, quote, amateur, end quote, scientist Ed Leedskalnin in the 1930s and 1940s. This coral-based temple/residence includes stone furniture, a moon pond, a North Star telescope, a precise sundial, and other features of exact astronomical alignment. Look at the larger map of the Earth grid. See diagram 4. We'll see it in a moment. And see the diamagnetic east to west lobes of the Earth grid point number 18 in southern Florida. Okay. Hey, Beyond the Box and Ivy, welcome to the stream. So we're talking about grid point 18 over here. And we are talking about Coral Castle. The tip of the Yucatan and the Mexico/Texas coastline clearly show the west diamagnetic lobe shape of the Earth grid point 18. The famous Bermuda Triangle is the east diamagnetic energy lobe of the Earth grid point number 18 in season. Okay, I think I understand what they're saying here. So they're trying to say the Gulf here is the way it is because of the magnetic field there. That's why it's all blown out. You see, they don't include that much of Texas here outlined. Just continental. But that coastline, I don't know about that. So what, the magnetics pushing out left to right caused what, the plates to move or what? What are we looking at here? Plate C. Alright, so there's a lot of information on this map, obviously. Well, let's keep reading here. One thing we will immediately note is that the east-west diamagnetic lobes of number 18 look like a horizontal bow tie. This happens to be another descriptive name for what is now called, in the magnetic sciences, a block wall. And block is spelled B-L-O-C-H. The block wall is central to our understanding of diamagnetism, gravity vortexes, and levitation. Okay. A block wall is a neutral center region at the junction of two magnetic poles, north and south. So see diagrams 5, 6, and 7. Block wall as neutral zone in Earth's dipolar magnetic field. Block wall illustrated in the magnet. The negative energy pole, north pole magnetism, spins to the left. Point of zero magnetism known as the block wall, and positive energy pole, south pole magnetism, spins to the right. Diagram 7. The broken 8 wave zone in the block wall. Okay. So a block wall is a neutral center region at the junction of two magnetic poles, north and south. It is thereby a, quote, magnetic flow reversal point, end quote, and is also known as a, quote, diamagnetic vortex point, end quote. The block wall is the point of division of the circling vortex or spin of the electronic magnetic energies of the north and south poles. The negative energy pole and the north pole magnetism spins to the left. The positive energy pole and the south pole magnetism spins to the right. The point of zero magnetism and no spin, and also the point of magnetic reversal where the two spin fields join, is the block wall. We have two antithetical elements or polarities meeting and generating a third element, the block wall, which is a weak pressure or gravity generator. The South Pole is the source, and the North Pole is the sink. The individual pole energy rotations are 3-component vectors, and the conjunction or block wall is a tensor. The resulting, quote, broken 8, end quote, figure is a 2-dimensional concept of a quadrupole pattern. We can visualize it as the spin 2 circularly polarized gravity wave force field source. I can make a note of this book titled Earth Magic. I'm looking at this fourth diagram that has all of the grid points on it. Just give me a moment here. It says A, B, and C, the plate push pressure north along numbers 58, 48, 35, and 18 hits at New York, Brookhaven, at the cross pressure from number 19. This causes the New England vortex and the Bermuda Triangle. So let me see if I could explain that. Right here. Nineteen's right in the middle of the ocean there, on the plate. So you have 18 and 19, 18 being the Bermuda Triangle. A, B, and C all push on that pressure point of 18 and 19. At least that's what I gather from it. And this key has like 1, 2, 3, 4, 6 other locations here. A, B, C, and D, the plate push pressure centers on the California fault line at San Diego and causes the southwest vortex. The next one is in Australia. The one after that's China, then Sinai, Las Vegas, Nevada, and Phoenix, Arizona, and Amchita Island. It's a lot of information there. Alright, let's continue on here. Two antithetical force fields, the magnetic and the electric, two vector force fields, meet and generate gravity, a neutral center force field, and simple two-vector system. or tensor. We can state this slightly differently by saying the conjunction of the two dipolar generated force field vectors, magnetic and electric, generates a quadrupole force field, or gravity. Gravity as a quadrupole source radiates in a circular 360 degrees polarization pattern, taking 2 cycles. Thus, a quote spin 2 end quote characteristic exists for gravity, and therefore gravity waves have twice the spin of electromagnetic waves. The lack of polarization in the gravity field explains why it cannot be neutralized. As a neutral center force element, gravity cannot have polarities by definition, but it is still just as basic a generated force as the polarized forces of the magnet or the electric fields. The electric field, as well as the magnetic field, has a neutral center effect that is also a gravity wave field source. The two polarized main antithetical force fields, magnetic and electric, are triadic in themselves, as polarization by definition requires, and thus they are both gravity field sources. There's a lot of information to take in. In all electromagnets, the block wall is actually external to the unit. And so see diagram 8. Block wall as independent of the magnetic fields. The block wall, the neutral center gravity wave source, is now in the gap between the magnet faces. In terms of the electromagnetic spectrum, the point is 10 to the 12th power hertz is marked as gravity. While below this is radar, radio, and standard EM frequencies. Above it are infrared and optical energy frequencies. This is nature's neutral center in the radiant energy spectrum, where her standard design triadic system demanded it be placed. 10 to the 12th hertz is the frequency of radiated gravity. And so see diagram 9. So this is titled Block Wall / Gravity Wave Field Source as a Function of the Electromagnetic Spectrum. So that provides us a visual of what I just read. In terms of the Earth grid, where the block wall of gravity wave field source exists, certain physically anomalous events can take place, such as spontaneous levitation. The Earth's diamagnetic flow field hits a reversal block wall area from south to north at these special anomaly points like southern Florida or central Australia. The equator line is merely a myth for geographers and fools. The magnetic reversal areas of south to north magnetism flow are near the tropics of Capricorn and Cancer. And these, quote, spaced out, end quote, anomalies seem to alternate positions around the globe. The best calculation I've arrived at indicates that there are within the Earth grid a total of 20 magnetic reversal points, with 10 nearly on the Tropic of Capricorn and 10 magnetic reversal points nearly on the Tropic of Cancer. The two sets of 10 points are offset almost equally from each other going around the globe. The north set is roughly midway between the southern set. It says see diagram 10. So the Earth's 20 magnetic reversal areas. There you go. See it written there? Coral Castle. So the filled in black circles on there, it says areas of intense anomalies, and then also specific anomalies. The planetary distribution of these magnetic reversal points is indicated on the accompanying map. On the large Earth grid map of the northern magnetic reversal points are near numbers 16, 17, 18, 19, and 20, 1, 12, 13, 14, and 15 from left to right near the Tropic of Capricorn. The southern magnetic reversal points are near the Tropic of Cancer, near Earth grid number 46, 47, 48, 49, 50, 41, 42, 43, 44, and 45. The grid map has to be shifted leftward in the south to space it more nearly correct. The north is closer to true. The resulting Earth grid map puts number 44 between number 13 and number 14, for example. This is the real magnetic flow reversal pattern on the Earth, such that above number 44 is the northern magnetic flow reversal point, or block wall. This has a beautiful bow tie of diamagnetic energy flows that can be clearly seen as the east and west coastlines of Australia. The plate push from below forced the diamagnetic bow tie up some, but it is still very usable. Why haven't we known about the existence of these 20 magnetic gravity anomaly points on the Earth grid before? A compass points north-south anywhere, and so hiding facts and using the myth of the equator's magnetic polarity was expedient for our cunning, quote, masters, end quote. The, quote, power elite, end quote, who control this planet. Oh, and look at this. We have some super chats going on here. Hey, Zenray. Good to have you here. And Zenray donated $4.99 in the super chat. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. And Beyond the Box donated $2. I appreciate that, Brenda. Thank you very much. Glad to have both of you here. And I know others of you are watching. Make sure to like the video below. And if you're watching after the fact and you're not subscribed yet, please, by all means, subscribe. We're getting into more information-dense chapters, but this is a little lighter one for today. Yeah, we don't have too much more to go. I mean, we still have a little ways to go, but we're more than halfway through here. Awesome. Thank you again, Zenray and Beyond the Box. I appreciate you guys. Alright, continuing on here. The reason for hiding it is obvious. If you knew this truth, then you would know that Coral Castle, Giza, Alice Springs, etc. were block wall, bow ties, or magnetic or diamagnetic vortex points. Extraordinary things can be done at these diamagnetic bow tie reversal points, such as levitating extremely heavy objects, and in parentheses, building Coral Castle and the Great Pyramid of Giza, end parentheses, and launching secretly the real massive spaceships and probes. And then, in parentheses, as at Alice Springs, Australia, and Lop Nor, China, for example. I'm going to have to look into Lop Nor, China. So that's two words. It's spelled L-O-P-N-O-R. Official knowledge of the considerable utility of many magnetic gravity anomaly points on the grid has taken obvious precedence over any concerns for public safety. If the officials warned the fools in planes and boats to stay out of the Bermuda Triangle at certain times, then ordinary citizens would know too much of their secret knowledge. If you are in the wrong place on the wrong day in the Bermuda Triangle, you will be a permanent piece of space junk, some 20,000 to 75,000 miles out in space. The Bermuda Triangle off the Florida coast, when active, is a powerful diamagnetic levitator. Usually the Earth contains the energy flow, but with extra stress from the sun, moon, and temperature factors, it ruptures upward and levitates anything over the quote below end quote points. Smaller ruptures will levitate anything under about 500 pounds, such as people, but not the ships they are on. The magnetic energy flows encounter the block wall or bow tie reversal at these grid locations on Earth. Nature uses the exact same method in a small permanent bar magnet for magnetic polarity reversal. The block wall is just a great deal larger and much more powerful when operating on the Earth. Didn't anyone ever wonder why there were no block wall effects on the mythical equator? If all the block walls for south to north magnetic polarity reversal were at the equator, no one would have ever crossed it. That's a good point. That is why nature designed the crisscross mesh reversal system for polarity reversal. And that is why there are Earth grid points where the unusual diamagnetic systems exist. These points work extremely well, facilitating the construction of places like Coral Castle or the Great Pyramid, or aiding the functions of secret space programs, which are all only large-scale versions of our party levitations, using natural Earth diamagnetism as a levitator force. The principles of diamagnetism clearly explain the reasons behind the exact location of secret or publicly known exploitations of magnetic gravity anomalies on the Earth grid. The quote "not" end quote top, or the north, on the bow tie magnetic reversal on a simple bar magnet reversal is the prime location to stage a major gravity-defying feat such as Coral Castle, the Great Pyramid, or an Alice Springs / Lop Nor space program. In parentheses, the Lop Nor Desert is where the Chinese space program and nuclear testing is centered. End parentheses. The center area of the block wall, the bow tie's knot, is the steadiest and strongest magnetic north point, which is where Leedskalnin put Coral Castle. The Egyptians put the pyramids. Somebody put the Easter Island statues. And where the government elites put the Alice Springs / Lop Nor sites. The inventions and researches of the insightful Austrian scientist/naturalist Victor Schauberger demonstrate the principles of diamagnetism on a small scale of polarity reversals operating in a simple bar magnet. His levitations are diamagnetic systems using water flows. Diamagnetism is the product or effect of a flow polarity reversal, like the block wall of the magnetic flow. Some waterfalls and streams have natural flows of diamagnetism or flow reversal effects. Schauberger simply built artificial water flows with internal powerful reversals in flow energy. These are simply a tubed version of a block wall system. The Schauberger water levitators are all continuous type devices for anti-gravity effects. The trout fish, after which Schauberger named his water turbine, senses the coldest area in a waterfall for levitating up it. The waterfall's central spiraling cold flow is an anti-gravity effect area where the energy is driven out or reversed to directionalized momentum as a natural anti-gravity system. A waterfall's center registers as a 0 or under on a stressed gravity detector due to the reversed anti-gravity momentum. Schauberger copied this natural design of spiraling cold water flow for levitating system in his logging flumes and turbines. Schauberger's implosion turbines interrupted the water suction flow by a special shutoff valve, thus creating a reactive back pressure force in the same direction as the implosion turbine. This reactive back pressure force is the lifting or discharge cycle or levitating action, directional momentum of these types of devices. The Schauberger water turbines were used as levitators in his versions of the German World War II project V-7 fighter aircraft. Thus, both Victor Schauberger and Edward Leedskalnin, the builder of Coral Castle in Homestead, Florida, wrote about and demonstrated magnetism and the mechanism of levitation applying natural earth grid principles of diamagnetism. And in parentheses, there's editor's note referring to Living Water, Victor Schauberger and the Secrets of Natural Energy by Olaf Alexanderson, Turnstone Press Limited, Wellingsboro, England, 1982. Also, Magnetic Current by Edward Leedskalnin, Homestead, Florida, 1946, and we read that one. I'm running out of room on here. So I'm trying to keep like a short list. It's still going to be pretty long here. Leedskalnin had two secrets. First, he knew where, in terms of the Earth grid, to build Coral Castle. Second, he knew how to do party levitation all alone. Try to figure that one out, the book says here. It's what we've been saying. It's what we've been saying here. He used levitation, but I guess it wasn't strictly sound levitation. He was humming, so maybe he was using all, like, a little bit of everything here. Like, there's a lot of tools being used in this equation. But it's good to have some hard stances here just listed out. It's great to see. Took long enough, right? Leedskalnin could levitate huge pieces of coral by using the center of mass for the needed slight uplift launching pressure. In party levitation, the four outside levitators are lifting the center of mass from the outside edges. If three of the four levitators were to step back at the end of the count of 10 hand stack or charge cycle, and the one remaining levitator would then quickly bend down and reach under the chair to the center of mass and use only 2 fingers to push upward, then the center man in the chair will levitate. Leedskalnin used a stick or board to push upward at the exact center of mass of his coral slabs to levitate them. You see how long it took for us to get to this point? I'm going to reread that. Leedskalnin could levitate huge pieces of coral by using the center of mass for the needed slight uplift launching pressure. In party levitation, the 4 outside levitators are lifting the center of mass from the outside edges. If 3 of the 4 levitators were to step back at the end of the count of 10 hand stack or charge cycle, and the one remaining levitator would then quickly bend down and reach under the chair to the center of mass and use only 2 fingers to push upward, then the center man in the chair will levitate. Leedskalnin used a stick or board to push upward at the exact center of mass of his coral slabs to levitate them. 2 of the humans, 180 degrees apart, in the party levitation scenario are, quote, seen, end quote, by nature as diamagnetism sources. The 4 people are a small temporary Earth grid point as far as nature is concerned. Thus, the block wall reversal effect, or diamagnetism, is created, and thus levitation of the central area object results. Schauberger put the mechanism in water tubes, and Leedskalnin played alone with his massive stones. But in either case, it is exactly the same process of diamagnetic levitation. We must remember Leedskalnin was working on a diamagnetic Earth grid point, so all mass objects in that area are always, quote, charged, end quote, and easily lifted at their center of mass by slight upward pushing pressure. Incidentally, due to the shifts in the north and south magnetic poles, grid point number 18 is now inside Homestead Air Force Base, which is not too far away. Thus, Coral Castle could no longer be built where it is now located. Well, from what we read, didn't Coral Castle get built before that base? So really, Ed could have built it wherever he wanted to. He built it exactly where he needed it. Here are some additional comments on the subject of anti-gravity or levitation. The reason for the weight of a mass in a gravitational field is the counter push of the two masses' gravity radiations. As humans, we push more powerfully on the Earth via our stress body than the Earth pushes on us. The total of the two pushes of gravity is so-called weight. If we lose gravity or the stress push by radiating it, as in the party levitation central element, levity, we push less. As our push or gravity decreases, the Earth's push effectiveness on us increases. This is, quote, weight loss, end quote, or levitation, which is really just letting the Earth push us away. It is not the total quantity of the masses that counts, but the effective local gravity field's relative strength. For example, in the fire hose, there is a decrease in the gravity or push of the water. Thus, the Earth pushes the water away, or in other words, the quote, weight loss, end quote, carries further. The circular or quadrupolar pattern of the whirling fire hose nozzle radiates or relieves some of the water's gravity or stress. It's important to note that Schallberger's designs are based on this kind of water stress control. Levitation or weight loss control is generally stress lowering via radiation, using gravity's natural characteristics. It works on either organic or inorganic mass, as gravity is the same for both. Think of it as the resultant pushes of two radiating sources taken locally. And in parentheses, these are near-field design problems. On parentheses. Humans are locally a more powerful source of gravity than the Earth because we push down on it. But as we lose gravity or stress push power, the Earth pushes us away. Here are two final observations in this regard. The forms of self-levitation or single-operator-induced human levitation appear to be hypnotic, trance-state shutdowns of the human body's gravity or stress generation. Inorganic object levitation, if it is possible, is the shutdown of the gravity or stress generation of the object itself. Theoretically, this object levitation is possible, in parentheses, as suggested by Coral Castle, pyramids, etc. End parentheses. A general theory of levitation systems must cover all of the various methods known to exist. This means there is a common factor among the diverse approaches of Earth grid, party levitation, Dean drives, Hooper/over-unity electrical generators, and Schallberger's devices. I gotta look up what Dean drives are. The common factor is the zero spin energy transfer, or the flowing of the non-spin energy. This non-spin energy is a neutral center type of energy flow related to the block wall phenomena and is the cause of the various types of levitation. And the Earth grid magnetic reversal points, the straight up diamagnetic energy flow is a non-spin energy flow. This energy flow is exactly halfway between counterclockwise, north, and clockwise, south, flow, and therefore it has no spin. Thus, the bow tie knot levitation energy is a non-spin energy flow. In party levitation, the four levitators drain or temporarily stop the spin energy flow around the levitee or the inanimate objects. Thus, they create a very temporary non-spin energy center which easily levitates. The Dean drive type devices cross-cut or dump energy during the critical action time that is, in fact, a non-spin energy. Mechanical as it is, the Dean drive can generate directionalized momentum or non-spin energy flow, and therefore can be used as a levitator system. The electromagnetic collapsing field reversals of Hooper or over unity generators generate a non-spin energy flow for short periods during each cycle of operation. Any energetic flow reversal generates some non-spin energy flow. Therefore, electric coils reversals generate some non-spin energy flow and can be used as levitator devices. Schauberger energetic water flow systems are reversed by valving, identical to the electrical coil systems. Therefore, the Schauberger turbines generate some non-spin energy flow and can be used as levitators. In a universe of basically spinning energy and particle systems, this non-spin energy has very powerful effects. The non-spin energy is the neutral center force field belonging to neither side of a generally polarized universe. As such, it is reacted with and repelled very strongly by all energy and particle systems. By the generation of non-spin energy flows and the directional vectoring of these flows, we can design most powerful levitating devices. If nature follows rules, which she does, then all we need to do is understand her methods, then apply them. Since diamagnetism is a reaction vector at the reversal point of an energetic flow system, all levitation methods must be similar in nature. Okay. So our next section here of the chapter is titled Vortex Gravity Research Areas Strategically Sited on Earth Grid Points. A most interesting pattern of vortex gravity research exists in the United States and Canada. The pattern is a counterclockwise vortex with 4 turning points or main centers/corners. The 4 main centers of vortex research are the extreme Southern California area, or San Diego and the vicinity, Northern Ohio, in the Coeur d'Alene area, and I totally butchered that name, 2 words, COEUR and D''ALENE. And that's in Idaho. Northern New York State by the Hudson River and Montreal area, and northern Georgia. So see diagram 11. Whoa. I'll show it again. Okay, so this box-shaped pattern bows both forward, this box-shaped pattern bows both inward and outward as it widens in the north-south axis, which is made of the 2 bowed continental coastlines and the major interior mountain ranges on the east coast, with a center at Kansas City, or Ellsworth. On the western vortex flow, the bowing widens and follows the Pacific Ocean coastlines on one side and the Rocky Mountains on the other side, going southward. On the eastern vortex flow, the bowing widens and follows the Atlantic Ocean coastline on one side, and the Catskill/Appalachian Mountains on the other side, going northward. The east-west vortex flows are relatively straight and narrow between the coastal vortex flows. To complete the general description of the boxed shape. And then parentheses, consult the Earth grid maps below to see these patterns clearly. End parentheses. So just really quickly, I'll show that diagram number 12. Worldwide gravity vortex research areas plotted on the world grid. And it's basically chopping up parts of the US and fitting it into Australia on the bottom. I don't know. Another interesting aspect of the eastern vortex flow is that, quote, pressure, end quote, flexing out of the southern Caribbean Ocean coming north against the flow produces the anomalous Bermuda Triangle and Lake Ontario phenomena. Once this Earth grid energy vortex flow gets pushed over or across or into water, massive, spontaneous levitation phenomena will occur. The vanished planes, ships, and people often reported are actually thousands of miles out in space from the vortex gravity toss. NASA knows this fact. That's what it's just... I'm reading this book here. This is what it's saying right now. The vanished planes, ships, and people often reported are actually thousands of miles out in space from the vortex gravity toss. NASA knows this fact. Schauberger's water vortex gravity levitators are based on the same effect, though on a small scale, as the Bermuda Triangle / Lake Ontario phenomena. The old Eldridge, or the Philadelphia experiment, data recounts side effects of the vortex gravity phenomenon. The Bermuda Triangle is a slanted out push of the north-south gravity bucking flows, and Lake Ontario is a focused slanted in push of the north-south gravity bucking flows. This is because the Atlantic coastline's land shape acts as an optical lens system to these bucking gravity flows. The location of these special vortex gravity regions makes them most appropriate sites for specialized research. So see diagram 12. So we just looked at that. Government vortex gravity research would have to be at Brookhaven, Long Island, and Los Alamos, New Mexico, under the disguise and security of supposed atomic research. Brookhaven is the best location due to the landfall pinch on the Hudson River flow. International governmental vortex gravity research would have to be at Alice Springs / Pine Gap in Central Australia because of the Earth grid requirements, and again under the disguise of atomic research. From the above data, it can easily be seen that the geographical shape of the United States, the coastlines, the mountains, is not accidental. Kansas City, or Ellsworth, is a midway point, and Las Vegas is directly centered as numbers 16, 17, and 18. Moreover, the pressure sources from South America flowing northward to buck the natural Earth grid flows in the same North America vortex also help produce the Bermuda Triangle and Lake Ontario phenomena. Note the accompanying maps. Australia's map shows why Alice Springs is used for gravity research. Note how the McDonnell Mountains turn 90 degrees to run east-west against the pressure flow above Alice Springs. Australia's very shape gives away the pressures that have been applied to it. The bowing pressure from the Arctic Sea or the Arctic area is obvious in the shape of the Aleutian Islands. But Amchita Island, right on grid map point number 6, is best for gravity research. It has plate push pressure on either side of it as well. Ed Leedskalnin understood completely that the exact location is critical for building such a structure as Coral Castle. But how did he know exactly where Mother Nature would allow him to cite this marvelous example of levitational engineering? Quite simply, he observed nature, which is all it takes to have true knowledge of the natural forces of Earth. So diagram 13 we have titled Earth Grid Wars. So let's just take a brief look at this. Hey, Brent, good to see you in here. Nature's gravity vortex center pulled Florida counterclockwise around some 90 degrees to its vortex center, like a gate leg table. The gravity pull center vortex energy also pulled counterclockwise on the southern end of Florida itself. On the map of southern Florida, I have drawn the opening arc and the exact gravity pull center, which is at maximum some 10 miles on either side of the physical center, but the strongest in the maximum counterclockwise position of north. Draw a triangle from where the Florida Keys start to where they stop to see the gravity vortex pull center point. The Land's End at Key Largo is exactly as far south from the gravity vortex pull center as Coral Castle is directly north. This is what Leedskalnin saw on his maps. This is all very important right now. So we rarely talk about Ed Leedskalnin in these books, although he is mentioned in all of these that we have been reading. But this came up pretty quickly in this installment here. The specific site location for Coral Castle and Homestead Air Force Base in southern Florida is situated at the maximum gravity pull vortex center position, or counterclockwise, or north. The distance from the vortex center is measured by using, quote, Land's End, end quote, at the south to tell you where the maximum equal point location straight north of the vortex center is. And that's going maximum counterclockwise, if going straight north. All that Leedskalnin had to do was, quote, see, end quote, what the maps were telling him, because nature draws vivid, exact pictures of her forces for those who have the eyes to see them. Then Leedskalnin simply used his gravity pull vortex center to levitate the huge blocks of native coral into place to make his castle. A 5-year-old could stack up automobiles in that general area. Once the operation of the Mother Earth's gravity system is known, then engineering artificial systems is simple. The patriarchal scientists of the cunning and stupid varieties who study gravity at these locations will fail because they all hate nature, the female, and reality. Whereas, quote, simple, end quote, men who like nature and only observe her, thereby accomplish great things. Witness Schauberger and Leedskalnin. The control attitude of patriarchal religions or secular humanism cannot force nature with their writings, equations, and bulldozers to do anything. If you really want to engineer nature's systems and forces, you must adore nature, the female, and reality, an attitude which is the total inverse of the present patriarchal scientific system. Our newfound awareness of the geopolitical importance of certain diamagnetic Earth grid points introduces the subject of Earth grid wars. The, quote, 3 Floridas, end quote, and in parentheses, Florida, Korea, and Vietnam, end parentheses, are still critical Earth grid points after 2 bloody wars. It says see diagram 13. We already did. The boost shock point to this triangle is Libya. The Caribbean plate has more recently seen a triangulation attempt that ended in military invasion. The Caribbean plate triangle shockwave system was to have been Grenada, Cuba, and Nicaragua. The next try in this general area is absolute control of the Chilean Earth grid point. The union of South Africa's grid point is critically necessary for control of both Europe and Australia. The Philippines' position on the major fault/plate system is pivotal to control of both Australia and Japan in the Pacific Basin. The Soviets already have secured and activated the site in Afghanistan. And this was in 1987. Now read again about the targeted countries in the daily newspapers and figure out who is currently winning the Earth grid wars. However, a truly expert knowledge of the Earth grid system with a true understanding of Mother Nature's ways could still reverse this bleak picture of geopolitical control through command of Earth grid locations. A discussion of the grid would be incomplete without some commentary on the Earth grid shifts. The Earth's magnetic poles do not completely shift, so they do not completely reverse or flip. Only the Earth's block wall magnetic reversal anomalies move positions in both the northern and southern hemispheres to balance the Earth. The block wall anomalies were much further north, some 10 to 15,000 years ago, at the time of their last estimated major movement. This block wall magnetic reversal area movement is caused by the Earth's expansions and possible contractions, landmass weight shifts, and changes in the sun. The so-called deluge and glacier phenomena are really caused by the massive ocean/sea tides and levitation effects at these times of balancing by the Earth block wall anomaly position movements. There were no deity-caused floods or ice age glaciers. There were only the Earth grid magnetic reversal anomaly movements. These movements would have been earth-shakingly impressive to observe. Later, they were recalled in myth and religious lore worldwide. Moreover, our knowledge of the Earth grid mapping system enables us now to plot major geopolitical, meteorological, and geological anomalies and disturbances with reference to possible magnetic gravity coordinates. So see diagram 14. We'll briefly look at it before we read more. That's really difficult to read, too. Plate boundary, movement of plate, uncertain plate boundary, and numbers referred to in the panel. Alright. Did we really think that a dynamically changing flywheel, gyro-like Earth sphere at about 1,000 miles per hour spin rate didn't need or didn't have a correctional balance system if it were not for the 20 movable locking points, or what we now call Earth grid magnetic reversal anomalies? This Earth would tear itself apart. Okay. So it says see diagram 15. Meanwhile, all we humans can do with this perfectly elegant design of Mother Nature is to use it as the grounds for yet another stupid war of conquest and control. The asteroid belt could easily be the result of some other planetary group like our own that held a disastrous Earth grid war. If we rip the buttons off this lady's blouse, we'll find out instantly why raping the Earth is such a fatally bad idea. Whoa. Okay, so diagram 14. Let's see what we can read here. Vile vortices. 10 areas of violent magnetic and climatic disturbance spread symmetrically around the globe, according to the investigator Ivan T. Sanderson. They include the Bermuda Triangle and are said to be places where phenomena are concentrated. Volcanoes. The geometrical lines are said to follow the edges of the lithospheric plates where volcanic activity takes place. Magnetic anomalies, said to overlap with the vertices of the polygons. Meteorology. Centers of cyclones and anticyclones lie at the nodes of the grid, giving birth to hurricanes whose path then follows the ribs of the grid. So do many prevailing winds and water currents. Earth faults. The mid-Atlantic underwater ridge lies between 10 and 37. Solar radiation. Maximum amounts of solar radiation are received at 1, 17, and 41. Atmospheric explosion. $1,700 million years ago, a spontaneous atomic reaction based on U-235 occurred at grid point 40. Yeah, okay. That's getting a little out there with the millions of years thing. Mineral ores. Mineral deposits are concentrated along lines of grid that coincide with edges of continental plates. Oil deposits are found at intersections. Space photographs. Photographic data collected by US and Russian satellites have recently made the map of the world more accurate and confirm some of the oddities suggested by the grid. A fault line from Morocco to Pakistan is marked by the line from 20 to 12. Gemini spacecraft have shown circular geological structures from 200 to 350 kilometers in diameter located at 17, 18, and 20. So even in Africa. Soil content. Lack of certain elements in soil at 2 and 4 has led to freak evolution of plant life. At 4, Lake Baikal, 3/4 of plants and animals are unique. Then bird migration. Birds overwinter at 3 different points, 12, 20, and 41. And then finally, ancient civilization. People unconsciously sighted their early centers at key intersections. Egyptians, Indus Valley, megalith builders, Peru, Easter Island, and northern Mongolia. And diagram 15 has Earth gravity focus points. This is from Schauberger, and it says, note, the numbers on the map are the Earth grid point reference coordinates. See diagram 4. U.S. has access or control of the 4 prime sites: Alice Springs, Easter Island, San Diego, and Brookhaven, New York. And I'll just show these last two. If I can get it to focus, come on now. I'm doing my best here to get this to focus. Just hang on. Man, it really doesn't want to focus at all. That. Okay, and that is it for chapter 3. And you can see for next week, we have Mathematics of the World Grid by Bruce L. Cathy. But that's it for chapter 3. And that's it for us today. So thank you for being here on a Thursday evening. I know we were supposed to go live Tuesday, but things happen. So we've read 3 chapters. We're going for chapter 4 next week. And that won't be too long of a chapter either. So we just hit 2 hours here. Oh. No, actually, I think this is going to be a pretty heavy chapter because it's smaller words. It's everything's a lot smaller in this chapter. So we might have a 3-hour show next week. I don't even know. We'll find out when we get there, right? But that'll do it. I thank you all for being here as always. Thank you again to Zenray and Beyond the Box here sending the super chats tonight. It keeps me going. I have this long list of books that I'm still working on acquiring, but we have a very good selection here to keep us busy for the foreseeable future. But yeah, it's supposed to get down to like the mid-30s here in the Midwest. Man, it's gonna be a cold Sunday morning, I know that much. But that'll be it for today. Thank you all for being here. And until the next one, class dismissed.